Do it. What is going on, listeners, and welcome back to the OIG podcast. Max Mess and myself here with Kevin Orsinger. And this is episode 10, and this one will be tax tips for retirement. Really something to keep in mind as you roll into retirement. Like we talked about in the last episode, as you go from working and employment income to this is now no more income from a job anyway, and you're going to start taking the money from the accounts that you've worked so hard to. But with that, taxes do play into retirement. This isn't, we wish we could say you retire and taxes just go away because you've paid them for so long, but unfortunately that is not the case. So Kevin, let's get in a couple tips for retirement that people might want to keep in mind as they start to do this process.
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is, there is a misconception among pre-retirees that when you get into retirement, your tax situation is automatically going to be better. I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket when I retire, and being retired has nothing to do with it. It all is connected to how much taxable income you have.
Right.
So I think that's the first thing I'd say. We've talked over the different podcasts, the different types of accounts and how they are subject to tax. So, if you have a 401k or an IRA, a traditional IRA account, every dollar that comes out of those is going to be subject to income tax. So we've talked before, if you have $1 million IRA account, you really only have $800,000 to spend.
Right.
That other $200,000 or about 20% on average ends up going to the IRS. Roth IRAs, as we've talked about, if you've 59 and a half or older and you've had the account open for 5 years or longer, no taxes on that. So that's the absolute perfect situation. And then the third account really is a non-IRA account, a brokerage type account, in which as taxable events happen on the account going forward, and even in the past, taxable events occur, you're going to get a tax document annually for the IRS. Usually, if you're lucky enough to have all three accounts, and if you've worked with someone like myself and Max over the course of your working years, you probably do. Taking withdrawals probably across all three of those accounts in your retirement is probably a pretty good plan. Max and I are not tax professionals, so take the tips and guidance and advice that you might be hearing as generalizations. We are not saying for your specific situation this is 100% the right way to do it, but as a general term, that's kind of the way to look at it. But if you've done things correctly, you have three different types of what they call the tax triangle type of accounts that you're working with.
And kind of to go with that hand in hand, one thing that we talk big time about, and it's kind of a tip that I'll dive into, is that healthcare taxable income correlation. Something that a lot of individuals that are heading to retirement is where Medicare starts to kick in, right? That 65 age. If you get out before that, there is going to be health coverage that you're going to have to cover, and taxable income definitely does come into that stage. But for somebody that, hey, we're 65, we want to call it done. We've worked hard. When you pick up Medicare, you still have to keep in mind when you're taking out of these taxable accounts how that's going to play to the healthcare side of things. With supplemental insurance on some of that side, Part B, there is and again, not that we're not going to dive into the specifics because there's thresholds here and thresholds there, but when you're doing it, it is still part of the game to know, at least. And I guess that's kind of what we want to do with this podcast, especially this episode, is put things on the table to keep in mind. So if you're working with us, something that we'll have the conversation about. If you're working with somebody else, be sure to bring that up of what is the best strategy to make sure that you are taking this into consideration. Because the last thing you want is to be taking taxable income maybe you don't know about or don't realize what it's going to be doing, and you change your financial position to something that you didn't think it would be in retirement. As we talked about last podcast episode, the reality of retirement, you don't want that reality to shift into something that you can't handle or that you don't want, a lifestyle that maybe changes a little bit because of having too much taxable income. Again, Kevin hit on those accounts. There are strategies with those and why those come into play. And we'll kind of get into those a little bit here as we go. But Kevin, anything with healthcare side that you see big time a lot of time?
Yeah, I mean, if you're between 60 or whatever age and 65 before you're on Medicare, it only really impacts you if you're doing some sort of subsidized health insurance. Your monthly premium is going to be tied to your annual income expectations. your annual income is higher than what you tell them it's going to be, then you're going to owe a bunch of money come tax time.
Yeah.
And as you said, the second part of it is, and most people don't realize this, is when you get to be 65 and you turn on Medicare for your insurance, your premium, monthly premium for Medicare is tied to your income. So the higher your taxable income is, the higher your Medicaid premium, or excuse me, your Medicare premium is for the same exact coverage.
Right.
So,
right.
And it goes up drastically and quickly, into the different tiers and levels. So as Max said, something to be cognizant of as you get to age 65, because you can end up paying, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year more for Medicare because the previous couple years you had higher income than you normally do. So again, that's the benefit if we go back to the first thing we talked about of different tax structured investment accounts.
Yeah. Which, still getting into that a little bit deeper, as we look at, as you start planning taking some money out of these accounts, because that's going to be the reality of what you're going to have to start doing. The tax-free, we talk about a Roth IRA a lot. And this is why, as a younger guy, especially for young individuals, and then there's the Roth conversion side of things, to still be able to get money into a Roth IRA around closer to retirement time, right? We're not saying that starting a Roth IRA at 62 and you're going to pump money into it, the limits for the next couple of years. Could it help? Maybe, but as we look at that, maybe that's a Roth conversion, going from a taxable account, converting it to Roth money so that it's tax-free when it comes out. Some of the younger generations, this is why it's so important to look at a Roth IRA and get money going into it. When you get to these stages, to have the ability to take money out of a tax-free account that is not going to go towards your taxable income can be a game changer. And we've seen it time and time again of how that plays into it, on the healthcare side, on the premium side, on just controlling the income side. I mean, they would have a lot of money in these accounts, but not have to take 50, 60,000 of taxable income. Instead, maybe, you split up some from this taxable account, from some from this tax-free account. And next thing you know, you took 60,000, but you only had 15 or 20,000 of taxable income. And that is really where the game changer comes in for that account. I just wanted to throw that in there because I know everybody knows that I am a freak for Roth IRAs. And I want to continue to be that because I truly think the benefits that come with it are top notch when we start getting into conversations like this.
Sure. The third thing we talk about with taxes and retirement is every year that you're going to make withdrawals, there needs to be some sort of strategic plan.
Yeah.
That, you're coming into January 1, you have an idea of how much you're going to need. You have an idea if you need some lump sums for projects or if you're just going to do monthly supplemental income for pensions and Social Security, but some sort of plan going into the year that gives an advisor an opportunity to say, okay, we should take 60% out of your traditional IRA and a certain percent out of your Roth IRA, and then the balance out of a brokerage account. Ideally, in time, we kind of keep those three types of accounts, with money in them. So at any stage during retirement, we have choices in how we're taking money out. You hate to spend down all of your Roth in the first couple of years if you have one, and then all of a sudden you're 70 years old and your only option is a traditional IRA. And again, you're losing on average, 20 cents of every dollar that gets withdrawn from that. So, communicating with your advisors, having an idea of, and it can change, but having an idea of how much money you plan on taking out during the year, and have some open communication to come up with a strategic plan of really what is the best way to do this, that I can take out all the money that I want and need to be able to enjoy my retirement with not having to pay anything extra in taxes. And ultimately, if you're over 65, not negatively impacting your Medicare premiums.
Because that's a conversation we have all the time, right? We have clients call in quite often that, hey, I need $5,000, $7,000. Where do you want it? Well, you send it from where I need it to come from, right? And that's part of working with somebody to know what account is best suited for that money to come out of, the tax side of it. And like you said, as well as leaving money in those buckets to make sure as you go through retirement, we always have those options. And it will change, right? Money does come out, some accounts get closed because they get to a certain balance, and it makes it more sense, but that's kind of the importance of that. Couple other things that we talk about with tax. I'm getting a little fuzzy here. I think I'm moving around a little bit too much, getting too excited. But talking with Social Security, and when to take that. I know we are talk about being done working because you don't want your Social Security payments to be taxed. That, they end up taking quite a bit of the chunk of that from the amount that you get. Other ways, Kevin, that we can kind of work on some taxable income, lowering it a little bit, or options to maybe do that?
When you get to a certain age, and right now it's age 73, if you have a traditional IRA account, you are required to make distributions, or called RMDs, required minimum distributions. Yep. That age moves, I think, age 75 in 2033. Yep. So if you have not turned 73 yet at that stage, the age moves on. But it's an annual calculation based on your IRA balance, your traditional IRA balance, of how much money needs to come out of it. We've got clients in some cases that the money that needs to come out of that needs to then, or is going to be taxed because the IRS wants their pound of flesh from that money. There are ways to satisfy those required minimum distributions without having taxable income for you. And the main thing, again, I think it's if you're over 70 and a half, you can start doing this, but most people do it at required minimum distribution age. And that's called a qualified charitable distribution, in which you can move money directly to a qualified charity, so a 501c3, one that is legitimately a charity. That money then goes directly, so $10,000 gets moved from your IRA, $10,000 arrives at the charity, you get credit for a $10,000 distribution, but no taxes are paid on it. So, that's, I think, a relatively new, I'll say the last decade or so, way to get money out of investment accounts, satisfy your required minimum distributions if you're of that age. But more importantly, from the investor side of it, is you don't have to pay a dime of taxes. Because the way it used to work before is you'd take $10,000 out, you'd pay your on average 20% to the IRS, and your charity would get a $8,000 gift. So as you're trying to be charitable, again, the IRS is sharing in that charitable gift. And I understand taxes are important, but if we can avoid them in situations where we don't want to pay them, let's go ahead and do that.
And that's part of a normal required minimum distribution is going to be completely taxable income. So just looking at that from somebody, as it comes out of that IRA, because it has to, not something that somebody can be like, I don't need to take my required minimum distribution. It is going to have to come out no matter what. So this is just something that, Kevin's hitting on, that is not a roundabout way, but a way that if you don't need that taxable income and you're you like charitable giving, there is that option. Instead of claiming all of that as taxable income, you don't have to claim any of it because it is going to a charity, which is really cool. And then the last one here, Kevin, that I kind of want to talk about is people work with us as financial professionals, right? And I think it's just as important to have the conversation of working with a tax professional because we are not tax professionals, like you kind of started this with. We have a pretty good grip on it and how the moving parts work and what that looks like. But when you're talking about absolutely specific things and strategies with them, I think it is just important to work with a tax professional, an accountant, having a good relationship with somebody that you can go to, show your situation to. And the good thing is a lot of financial professionals do work with tax professionals. So they understand back and forth of when we give a strategy and you take it to a tax professional, they understand what we are kind of doing and how that works. They can also then share a piece of that pie, get in on that plan, and give you some guidance of how does that look when tax time comes. A more specific picture, because we never want surprises in any of this. We never want, hey, I'm taking a distribution of, $20,000 and then don't do this, withhold taxes, don't do that. And then we end up getting a tax time and it's a slap in the face because the check you have to write to cover that up. That is why we withhold taxes, to kind of put that out there in the first place. So that way that is not the case when that time comes. But guys, I really think as we talk about working with us, have a good relationship with an accountant, find somebody that that you trust, that you can go to with all these documents. They are going to, do their best on their end, as they all do, but make sure that you're able to approach them with what you approach us with, and then they will understand that situation. Just makes things go that much smoother when you have both sides of this understood. And as we talk about clients, it offloads that burden from you guys to us and to them. You then are not sitting at home thinking about this, right? That is the goal of working with us, is to offload that stress and understanding to us. So
the guesswork of how much can I take out, you can kind of solve that by working with a CPA or tax professional. They can look back over previous returns and say, hey, yeah, your income's normally this. You could afford to take out $25,000 more of taxable income this year. and it's not going to move you to that next Medicare
Exactly.
bracket. So that way
Yep.
you're not guessing and thinking, oh, how much can we? And you could
Yep.
take out 25, but you only took out 10 because you were scared, or you took
Yep.
out 55 and it moved you into that next premium, we'll call it premium tier for Medicare if you're over that age. So,
and like you say, Kevin, staying connected to your money. That's just
Yeah.
one way. That's another part of this, is making sure that you're staying connected to it.
Absolutely. Go ahead and run us through the recap, Max.
Absolutely. So a couple tips here, guys, for retirement, everything that we just talked about. First one, understanding your tax situation, knowing those tax brackets, knowing where you're at, what accounts are taxable, what are not taxable, how they're going to come out. Knowing that relationship with your taxable income and healthcare. We never want any surprises on Medicare, on premiums jumping up here and there. We go back to that reality of retirement and make sure that you understand the reality of what those premiums are going to look like for you. Planning your withdrawals, knowing, again, those accounts, how they're taxed, what that's going to look like, working with somebody that you then can understand with how that's going to come out, how it needs to come out. Consider tax timing strategies, Social Security, how that comes into play, your required minimum distributions we hit on, and then Kevin talked about the qualified charitable distribution and how that can play into not paying that tax or not having that taxable income with using some of that money for charity side of things. And the last one, kind of what we just talked about, is working with a tax professional. Getting somebody that understands your situation, working with both sides of the ball, with a financial professional, tax professional, and allowing them to take that burden, offload that stress to you, and know your situation and what needs to happen in it. So you're where you need to get, because that's the end game, is enjoying retirement, and these are the great first steps to start doing it.
Yeah. We will, Max and I were talking yesterday that we will have just an individual podcast on what a Roth conversion is and how that works, because I think that's an important part of having strategic planning. And then we'll also do one on the qualified charitable distributions, because if you're 70 and a half age and older and are charitably inclined and are not anti-taxes, but you don't want to have to pay any more than you want to pay, it's a real good strategy for you to benefit the charities that you care about, and also kind of limit the amount of money that Uncle Sam's collecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, we always appreciate you tuning in. Here's our contact slide. Scan that QR code. Head to our link tree. It has all of our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everything we're posting on. So if you're interested in some other things, a lot of good videos. I do some 2-Minute Tuesdays. Kevin does some Monday market updates. Just some really good information that you can stay with. There's a text line in there. If you have a question, shoot us your name and your question or your topic idea to that text line, and we will get a hold of you, or we will do the video for you. Website on there. Just check everything out we got. Like I said, we're doing a lot of new stuff, a lot of good information we feel that's going out. So take advantage of it. And if nothing else, we will catch you on the next episode.
Very good. Thanks.